2020 has been a year filled with uncertainty when it comes to Disney vacations, especially for the Disney Cruise Line. But based on a new report from the CDC, recent action from the Cruise Line International Association, and action from Disney, one thing that's becoming more certain, there might not be any more Disney Cruise Line sailings in 2020. And in this video, we're going to be talking about why that is and when cruising might resume. Hey there, I'm Eric D, and on this channel, my goal is always to help make your next Disney adventure a little bit more magical with tips and tricks, food reviews, and vlogs. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. And as I said, in this video, we're going to be talking specifically about the Disney Cruise Line and what's going on with the status of the cruises and all of that. So first, let's do a brief refresher of how we got to where we are, and then we're going to talk about the recent action of why it doesn't look good for the rest of 2020. On March 14, 2020, when the US really started to experience the effects of COVID-19, the CDC issued a no-sail order for cruise ships under the US authority. That order was to last for 30 days. On April 9th, the CDC renewed the no-sail order, and it would go into effect on April 15th. This time, the extended order was to go into effect until one of the following occurred. The Secretary of Health and Human Services declared that COVID-19 no longer constituted a public health emergency, or the CDC director rescinds or modifies the order based on specific public health or other considerations, or 100 days have passed from April 15th, and 100 days from April 15th would have been July 24th. At this point, many were hopeful that cruising would return mid-summer, but as the days passed without any word from the CDC, on June 19th, the Cruise Line International Association announced that the association's ocean-going cruise line members would voluntarily extend the suspension of cruise operations from U.S. ports until September 15, 2020. Then on July 16th, the CDC renewed the no-sail order and extended it until September 30th. All the while, Disney Cruise Line kept canceling cruises based on these updates. Then on August 5th, the Cruise Line International Association announced its ocean-going cruise line members agreed to voluntarily suspend cruise operations until at least October 31st, 2020. So you may be saying to yourself, well, there's still hope for November and December. Well, after this announcement, Disney Cruise Line removed all November cruises from their booking options. So while they haven't formally canceled these cruises in November, they aren't allowing anyone else to reserve them, and this could be because they are limiting capacity, but based on everything else we've seen so far, it seems like most likely they will be canceled. But keep in mind, at the time of making this video, they have not officially been canceled. And even though December cruises are still open to book, things don't look promising either. This is where we're going to talk about this 20-page report from the CDC about cruising and their feelings on it currently, and also about some of the recent things that have happened in Europe as they've tried to restart cruising. And I know if you've been on a cruise before, and especially a Disney cruise, you might be saying to yourself, they take sanitation very seriously, they take health very seriously, even more seriously than the park. So if Walt Disney World can be open, if other hotels and resorts can be open, why can't cruise lines be open? And as you'll see in this report as I talk about it, the parks and the cruise line are very different in some of the challenges they face, mainly because guests and cast members and crew members are so close together on a cruise ship for a specific period of time, whereas in the parks they can spread out more, in the hotels they can spread out more. So those are some of the concerns that the CDC has. In the CDC report, it says, the current scientific evidence suggests that cruise ships pose a greater risk of COVID-19 transmission than other settings. And they even call out from the period of March 1st to July 10th, 2020, a total of 2,973 COVID-19 or COVID-like illness cases on cruise ships. That is 99 outbreaks on 123 different cruise ships, meaning that 80% of the ships within US jurisdiction were affected by COVID-19 during this time. And during most of this time period, the no-sail order was in effect. They also use the example of the Diamond Princess cruise ship that prior to the ship-wide quarantine being put into place, the reproduction rate of COVID-19 was 14.8. So if one person on the ship had the disease, they transmitted it to approximately 15 other people. This is especially bad when that rate is 4 times higher than what people were first experiencing when the virus began on land, which was 3.7, meaning that each person with COVID-19 in the early days of the outbreak was transmitting the disease to approximately 4 other people. The CDC said this heightened rate of transmission is due to the high population density aboard ships, which are typically more densely populated than cities or most other living situations. The CDC continues, While this is one contributing factor, CDC surveillance data acquired during the period of the no-sell order shows that drastically decreasing population on board does not extinguish transmission. Other factors likely contributing to onboard transmission are crew living and working in close quarters in a partially enclosed environment, where social distancing may prove challenging even with a limited number of people on board. Another thing that I'm sure is impacting the CDC's decision-making is as they're seeing real-world examples of cruise ships going back into operation, especially in Europe, where some of those cruise ships have recently gone back into operation because those countries have been able to bring the numbers down. Well, over the past few weeks, some of those cruise ships going back into operation have not had ideal experiences. So no matter how well prepared Disney is or how on top of their game they are, the CDC has to look at the cruise line industry as a whole. They also have to be looking at these real-world examples of what's happening in other countries. And those decisions by the CDC affect Disney because their hands are kind of tied by these government organizations. In Norway, one cruise line that recently restarted ended up with what was believed to be 36 crew members becoming positive. And now at least 53 individuals from the ship have tested positive, including 16 guests, and that number may be higher at this point. And in Germany, one cruise line had 10 crew members test positive. There were several other cruise lines that also recently started sailing, and also they had either crew or guests turn up positive. So while those other countries seem to be doing better than the US is when it comes to bringing the numbers down, that didn't mean they could completely prevent the virus and sickness from getting on the cruise ship. Which brings us to another thing that is concerning to the CDC, that COVID is not under control in a number of states, countries, and therefore their ports. So part of cruising is that you are visiting different locations, so even if all the crew is healthy and you are able to make sure all of the guests are healthy when you get on board, you have those various ports of call where guests will be getting off and possibly be exposed to locations that are still having problems with the virus. The CDC specifically said it finds that cruise ship travel exacerbates the global spread of COVID-19, that the scope of this pandemic is inherently and necessarily a problem that is international and interstate in nature, and such transmission has not been controlled sufficiently by the cruise ship industry or individual state or local health authorities. So while this hopefully has been informative so far, it definitely hasn't been an upbeat video. And that makes me sad because Disney cruises are amazing. They are so fun. I highly recommend them to anyone, whether you have done them before or you haven't done them. They are honestly amazing and so magical. But the question is, if they're not going to be happening at least till December, and that's even questionable at this point, when are Disney cruises going to resume? Just because the calendar turns from 2020 to 2021, that doesn't mean everything is going to go back to normal. So the first few months of 2021 might be questionable if you're planning a cruise. But some good news is vaccines are looking promising, with Pfizer promising 100 million doses to the US by December, and additional millions of doses being promised from several providers for early 2021. Of course, a vaccine won't solve all the problems because it's not 100% effective, but I feel like that might be one of the biggest steps in the right direction. But even if Disney Cruise Line begins again in early 2021, I think we will see lower capacity on ships to begin with, more social distancing, and some changes to the experiences as they work to keep guests safe. Some of the other cruise lines in the cruise industry are saying that they're expecting things to get back to normal by the end of Q2 of 2021. So definitely not right at the start, but hopefully as people are taking it seriously, as vaccines come into play, as different things happen along the way, each one of those steps will get us closer to things being back to normal. Because once again, Disney cruises are amazing, and I hope to go on one again at some point soon in the future. But let me know in the comments below, how is this impacting your either desire to go on a Disney cruise, or if you had a Disney cruise scheduled, what's that looking like for you? Have you had to reschedule one? Are you going to reschedule one? I definitely am still looking forward to one, but right now it's just too hard to plan for me. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, please give a like. And as always, consider subscribing to the channel because I have lots of food reviews, tips and tricks, and other great news coming in the future. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see y'all again real soon. Bye.